Welcome. My name is Andreas Haandlykken. I'm going to give you a presentation together with some my colleagues here about the new calendar for FileMaker developers. I just want to make a short introduction, personal introduction, my personal background. I'm married, have 3 grown-up kids and 3 grandkids. And I have a passion for guitars and amps. Professional background, it leads actually back to 86, 87, when I was a part-time employee at Apple in Norway as a student. I was actually helping out with the localization of the Norwegian Mac OS back then. This made me get in connection with a lot of interesting companies. So we actually formed a distribution company distributing software from the US. So we made a business about that for about 10 years. And learned a lot about product development, product management. I've always been a product developer, and I'm also chairman and co-founder of Tansa, which is language technology. It's a client service-based text proofing system that's used by the major US publishers, actually. I'm also the CEO and co-founder and senior developer at Codeo in Norway. We are a small company, but you need to cover a lot of different roles. At Codeo, we have one saying: we simplify every day. That's our goal with our development. If there is a button we can take away, reduce steps, unneeded steps for the user, that's where we are aiming at. A little more about Codeo. We develop vertical EHR and ERP solutions in FileMaker. That's developed with the Codeo Next framework. We have multiple customers with more than 150 concurrent users. We must, because our customer base, we are very much GDPR compliant. And we design our solutions by design, security by design. Of course, we use the built-in FileMaker privilege sets, but we have built a quite powerful way using JSON to control access for each and every user's access to features and functions within the system. So that means you can log in and use the same system based on your login. You will have access to different sets of features. It's very, very powerful if you're a big organization. And of course, we are always striving for performance, right? That's always a challenge. And usability. That brings us back to we simplify every day. And I've been working with calendars and scheduling in FileMaker for more than 20 years. And a big thank you for some third-party vendors that we have relied on in the past. They have been really helped out. But if we look at the biggest clients of us, could have up as much as 700 consultations a day, divided in 14 departments. Then you need a fast, responsive calendar to keep track of the scheduling. This is the development team that has been involved in building this calendar. It's really been a team effort. It's the happy marriage, but no, that's not a nice thing to say. But it's a nice combination of the senior developers meeting the really young guys, the new talents. So I need to get help from the young ones little later on. So just another calendar. We name it a developer-friendly calendar for FileMaker and JavaScript developers. It's important. It's important to be developer friendly to both worlds. But why on earth should we develop a new calendar? There are some calendars gives a quick start that you can buy from third-party vendors, but they seem to have limited customization options. And some businesses have turned out to sell calendar as a service, and that might not be the fit for your solution. There are calendar add-ons. At first sight, easy to implement, but hard to get perfect. And we simply grew out of what existing solutions could offer. I'm sure there are some existing solutions that do what we want, but we can find one. So it's hard to get the right performance and stability, and there's been no easy way to modify the display on an event, for instance. And this is kind of in contradiction with the DNA of FileMaker, which says our power as a FileMaker developers should be to make the solution do exactly what the user needs. That's why you don't buy a standard system from someone. That's FileMaker. The developers should have freedom to make it perfect. And how can we address this in a calendar component? That's been some major objective for this. So just another calendar is developed with first and most with modern and efficient web technologies, utilizing the React framework, TypeScript, and it's going to be available to paying developers in 2 flavors. One is full source code plus documentation for both the FileMaker part and the JavaScript or web part. That's in contradiction to what's been available so far, as far as I'm concerned. And it's very important that if we are not good enough for you, and you have better skills, you will still be able to improve the JavaScript part. There also will be, because you can do all kinds of customization entirely by using FileMaker and JSON FileMaker scripting and JSON.
We'll get more into that later.
Yeah, but that's you can just get access to the minified HTML. Of course, it's GDPR compliant. That means there are built-in features to hide information about contacts, for instance. We have made it very easy. If you are having a full calendar and you have a lot of patient names, for instance, you don't want to have that displayed for everyone. Then it's just a button to turn off. And we have ensured there are no external API calls. It works without any internet connection. And this is also very important, that we are not writing back data to some external servers. There will be yearly subscriptions for updates, but license is permanent for versions received. So we are trying to get it developer friendly in every way. Some unique features that we can easily apply, that we can supply. We have different user groups, may have different needs. They might see different information on what's your access you're getting. And we do offer dynamic rendering of fields to display. So with just a few FileMaker script steps, and JSON configuration, you could totally display, change the way an event is displayed. Actions to events. It's easy to add dynamic display of buttons that you could actually use and attach scripts. And you can build sidebar the way you want. Search for contacts and display information in one action, for instance. And we have made it, if possible, very easy to implement event templates. So if you're always creating the same time of events, you can have event templates available. And we support dynamic views. That is not maybe unique, but we do support all major views. So what does it mean more of being developer friendly for FileMaker? We require one JSON field per calendar source. There's this JSON field is storing metadata for the event. So what we have found with others, a lot of other calendar sources or calendar systems has been that you are required to actually implement display information in the event. We have stripped that out, so it's pure metadata about the events. And as I mentioned earlier, all customization is done by JSON and FileMaker scripting. And the minimal scripts needed. There's configuration and initialization in one script. Of course, you need to collect data with FileMaker scripts, what to present, and resource data. And we have optimized the HTML code quite rapidly. And so when we build the calendar module, it's actually stored in one text string. So it makes it very easy to implement in your solution. And it's less than 1 megabyte of disk space. So now I'm going to turn over and show how we use just another calendar in our vertical solution knobs. This is knobs. This is the my page view. This is the calendar. You could see how fast it loads. Just show you for you developers the data viewer. I have here. This time it loaded in the complete initialization happened in less than in 543 milliseconds. That's including getting the events from our server back in Oslo. We could easily change displays or views. And we can, if you see here, we have no names. That's because we have the privacy button. You'll see we have names displayed. So by default, we turn on the privacy mode. We have a custom sidebar, which is of course we have a date selector. You could search within the displayed content.
So this search field is just a client-based search, so it would run just in the browser.
So this is just searching for the events displayed. But then we also add, because that's a lot of need for, is to search for contacts. Let's say there is a if you are working in a call center, you want to have and you receive a call. The routine here is to search for date of birth or telephone number or something which is unique to the client. So we could do that, but now I just search for a name. And now it turned out that it was this contact. And we see there is already an event planned for this patient. And we could go there and show the events for this resource and how busy it is from that date. If you want to add on a new event to a new consultation lasting for 2 hours for that patient, you could drag it directly over to the calendar.
And now this pop-up.
And now we are actually showing a FileMaker layout. So we could have other kinds of, if for a meeting, for instance, you could have different types of events. So we have chosen in this sample to use FileMaker layouts as for displaying the events, but you could also do it with a built-in FileMaker. No, I mean JavaScript. I have one more thing to show you. It is what is the most hard thing about calendars and see how busy a person is. So we added a heat map. It searched for the entire month and see, and this is just a very simple function that we added. It just collects how busy a user is every day, and the higher the number is, the darker the color. And as we browse through months, you see that next month is not that busy yet. So it makes it very easy to navigate to a date which is not full of appointments. And that's very handy when you're planning. I'm also going to show you a little about insights of how it's configured in FileMaker. I was not brave enough to do this entirely to just turn out all the features, but let's say we're going to see icons. We have let's see, icons.
It's been a while since I've been into the script, so
yeah. Icons.
It says down
here,
there.
yeah. Here is our previous. This is a collection of. This is pure JSON, and it's actually all the icons that we use in the calendar. It's collected in one place. So we give every icon a name and a unique index. So what we recently we found out that we did not have an icon for repeating events to display that this is a repeating event. We needed an icon for that, and in the definition of the event we have is repetition true or false. That's part of the standard JSON. So that's why we added one icon here. And
it's the repeat one at the bottom here.
Yeah. Repeat. Everybody can see that this is a repeat icon. But it's just we just made copied the JSON content from a location we used, and we just set it up in the one script step. And there's also about the elements, the way we come back to more detail into this. Let me see.
We call it the default event component, no?
The default element. default event.
Yeah.
Let me see.
It's probably higher up.
Of course.
There we go. We got default fields.
Yeah, here. So here, this is where you defined the which fields to display in the an event. It's just one script step, JSON configuration, and here we have actually added this this value that icon. We want to use icon repetition, and it's kind of a filter that we pass through to the JavaScript component. If we are only going to display this icon if is repetition is true. So we use this for this kind of styling. For instance, if I go back and I just show you one thing. Let's say this patient has arrived. I would click here that he has arrived, and it would automatically update the calendar with another different color, a darker green color, that it has actually arrived. That's very useful information. And when he has arrived, he should not be able to arrive 2 times, right? But he should be able to check out. So then we bring up the checkout dialogue. So this is to summarize so far. We have. I think I'll leave it over to you here. Would that be?
Yeah,
great?
I mean that's perfectly fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm going to bring the microphone over to Joachim. He is going to show you some deeper details about the JavaScript part, and with help from his younger colleague Vetle. He's going also to assist with the manufacturing. So I have just switched display here.
Yeah, so one of the things we provide when we're selling this calendar is a pretty simple demo file which provides an example on how you can set up the calendar and use it in a pretty simple way. So what some of you have seen it on our stand where we have we've added certain types of filters and templates in the side menu, and we have a layout in this demo file which shows essentially all the JSON that we've passed to.
But we have no display here.
We don't.
Yeah, but okay.
Love technical difficulties. Right, but yeah, while that's
Få litt hjelp. Vi mangler Sorry.
Yeah, while we're trying to fix this issue, I'll explain a little bit more about how we're using the filter objects. So what you saw with the icon that we did for the repetition, you had the underscore filter object, which what we do in the code itself is we compare the object and the event. So for every single event, when we're determining what to display, we're checking all the different components and fields we've defined, and the filters would control, for instance, which fields would actually be displayed based on whatever values you provide. And we've made it, we've added a bunch of functionality for it. So the most basic one that we've done here is just comparing one Boolean value, but we also have functionality for adding JavaScript evaluation, and you can also then check the configuration itself and not just the event. But I do not think that we've used that in the demo itself. Yeah, so in this layout here, we have, for instance, we have our event filters up there on the left. Those are for filtering out our events. We've also added functionality for the filters to control which color an event has in the calendar. So you don't have to store whichever colors you want on an event if it's controlled by the filter itself. And so for each event filter, you can either map them up for, you can map them with IDs, or you can use the same filter object that we used for our fields. We've tried to keep it very uniform across the entire solution with how the filter objects function. So in this example here, we have each event has the field called event type. And that can either be, say, technical, sponsor, integration, because what we've done here was we've essentially copied the engage you agenda for today. And then the filters here on the left, they are mapped to that event type field. So for instance, you have the, up here we have the sponsor one. For the sponsor filter, any event that's going to be affected by that filter needs the event type value of sponsor. And then what you'll see is the event color object is what controls the color an event has. So if you move back to the demo, we'll see that once we load the calendar, you see you have a bunch of colors on the event filters on the left, and those match up with the events that are displayed. So we're able to enable and disable all the different filters to show and hide whichever events we really want. And also below, we have our templates. In this demo so far, we only have one template for a break. But what you can do with templates is you can simply, as we showed in the earlier demo, you can drag it into the calendar. And in this demo, we've made it so it automatically creates a record. We can also show that in a bit with how we've called a script to create a record. But if you now click on the break you just dragged in, there's now a record in FileMaker, which took like 2 seconds. And we also added the simple delete button yesterday. It took about 5 minutes of work. So you delete it and it's gone immediately. And the way we do that is we essentially just, when we press delete, we go back to the calendar after deleting the record and tell the JavaScript component, hey, this event ID no longer exists, remove it, which is one script step. So around the templates, another use case you have for templates is, we've seen here for our use case, it's certain types of events. But what you could imagine is if you have a waiting list of events that don't have a designated time, you can put those in a list of templates here, drag them in to assign a time for the, say, if it's an appointment in a waiting list, and then you can immediately just save it. And however you want to do your processing of the event triggers themselves, that's completely up to you, because all the FileMaker scripting, that's done by you as a developer. The rest is done through the JavaScript, but it only calls the scripts that you map to it. Question? Yeah, we have a spot for full day events as well on the top, which you can also enable and disable. Which in that case you would only have to pass. I don't think it's actually set up in this demo for all day events, but what you can do is you can set a Boolean value to specify if it's an all day event, and in that case you don't need to specify any time range. You only need to specify the date. And now, as you may have noticed, this is some of you already recognize it's a full calendar. So what we've done is built a React app on top of full calendar. And then we've added a bunch of functionality such as the sidebar to make it a complete solution, along with our build process to really simplify the way you implement it. So we can actually just show the different scripts we've used if you open the script workspace. It's a very minimalistic demo file. So you see, for instance, the load HTML script, it's fairly short. So one thing here is the way we load the web code itself is we have a HTML table where we have a name and the source code itself. So what we do is we essentially just open up that layout, we find the right record, we store it in a variable because it's small enough to be stored in a variable, and then we just inject that source code directly into the web viewer. And then right after, that's where we perform the JavaScript to initialize the calendar with our JSON configuration. So that will be done in the create config script. So in here, we've performed the different scripts for gathering our resources that are used. Those are the different rooms that you saw in the top. And then we also, in this demo, we have our icons in our own tables. So we're also fetching those, and then there's the events. And then right on line 18 here, you see the script names that we've done. So what we've done is we have a list of different keys for different events you can listen to, like triggers from the calendar. And then you can tell the component what's the name of the script that should be ran when this and that happens. So if you open up the script names here, you can see that we're able to use our own sort of naming scheme for scripts as long as the keys there on the left match up with what we've defined in our calendar. And that's a really useful. You would have certain restrictions from other calendars where they had very specific scripts that would be called, whilst here you can sort of define that yourself. And we have a huge list of different events that you can sort of listen to. Probably the most specific one being listening to whenever you're opening and closing the little arrow next to event filters and templates. And then you can use that as a continuity function. So say a user doesn't really find the event filters that useful, they close the little event filter area, and then you can store that in a sort of variable however you want to do it. And then when they reload the calendar later, you can sort of restore that state. Next, we have, if we go further in the script, we've got our, yeah, we actually do that in the config right below here in line 21. So if you open that up, this is the entire configuration that we're sending to the calendar. So here at the top, we've added our events, our resources, and icons as different JSON arrays. And then we have our script names object that I showed. And then there's our default event component, which we have in the configuration layout. There are the different specifications for which date we're on, how many days we want to show, and which full calendar view we're going to use. Because what we're trying to do is make the calendar able to use essentially any view that's defined in full calendar's docs. Because they have a lot of different ones that are useful to pretty much everybody. For instance, with another part of our application that we didn't show is what we call a production plan, which essentially functions as a Kanban board. So while it's a calendar module, you can still use it as a Kanban board, which I think is really interesting. And then aside from that, you also have settings for the time settings here, calendar start time and end time, where you can specify, say you have working hours from 8 to 4. You don't need to show every single time from 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. The next day. So what you're able to do is say show from the times from 6 a.m. to, I guess, 6 p.m. And then that would only display the relevant times for when your working hours are. And along with that, we added, a little recently, the initial scroll time. So say that your workday starts at 8 a.m., but in some cases, you might have events that start a little bit before. You can initialize the calendar in the sense that the top time that's displayed is 8 a.m., but then you're able to scroll up. And that's what we've done in our solution, actually. I think we start at 8 a.m., and then we switch that to, you're able to scroll up to 6 a.m. And aside from that, there's our event filters in the array here. We have our event templates. The areas, those are sort of defining the collapsible little arrows and their labels. We do have default configurations, so those don't actually have to be passed. Well, we have our language-related settings here. One thing that's really important to mention is being able to define the first day of the week. Because in some countries, you have the first day of the week being a Sunday, whilst in a lot of other countries, including Norway for us, the first day of the week is Monday. So we've added really simple functionality for just specifying which day of the week comes first, which will be displayed both in the calendar and in the date picker that we have in the side menu. And then there's also a translations table for certain labels in the calendar that are sort of static. So you would use that to define language-specific labels. And then we may add in the future that you can have multiple different translation tables in one configuration, but as of right now, it is per label. And then aside from that, there's other Boolean values that you can configure, such as the all day slot, which would show and hide the all day label at the top. There's the now indicator, which I'd recommend to always have on, which it shows a red line of the current time of the day. There is show weekends. In some cases, you don't need to show Saturdays or Sundays, which we don't actually. But in some calendars, you might want to show those specific days. And then there's the side menu disabled, which would be for, say, if you want a info screen where the side menu doesn't really need to be shown. Like if you have a big TV in a employee lounge and you don't need to have any specific user interface to be shown, then you can turn that off, or sorry, disable it by turning it on. Same with side menu open, that's for the continuity. So that boolean essentially just controls whether the side menu starts as open or closed. And then there's the date picker, which you can also disable. For the event filters and templates, they simply just won't be shown if you don't pass any arrays of filters and templates. So while it looks like a little bit much, we've decided to make it this way to make it as customizable as possible, while also making it fairly straightforward. So, is there anything else in the script that we need to go over? Not really in this one. Question? Yeah? When you're inserting more events, or?
You need to repeat the question.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so you want to add more fields to the calendar or more icons and displays?
No.
Or such? Right.
Ah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we try to keep it to the same scheme. So even if you're using one JSON structure, we're gonna keep it to sort of the same for each update, and then we'll add on to it. So
Well, yeah, we'll make it work that existing features should not be broken.
yeah,
But if you want, and there's just one component that is going to changed automatically. Script steps that you're going to make use of new functionality would need to be added, of course. So that's we have no intention of doing automation of that aspect. And we use it in production every day. It's in production now for very big clients, and we have the same. We are in the same boat as you. Mm. Yeah. Mm. 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 Then it's just import that single
yeah, you
text
simply
file.
just replace the entire HTML file. It doesn't affect any of your configuration that you pass. Yeah, everything is just in that one HTML text string, which is really interesting. Every single library we've used, the entire React app, everything is just in one string. Yeah, everything aside from this HTML string, that's done by you as the developer. There are no other sort of in-betweens.
But we'll give you, we will probably give you samples of what you need to do to utilize the new functions.
Yeah. We'll also provide tons of documentation on how the different JSON structures work.
Question? Yeah. Now, that's why you need different calendar views for different departments.
Yeah, showing
So-
700 events in the calendar, although it may work, it's probably not going to be too pretty.
No, it's not useful, but it's no, but it was part of a sample of the complex application that you need to solve, and you need to have for supporting an organization with that. You need to have different calendar views for different teams, and we made it always very easy to switch.
Yeah, you could add your different company buildings as resources here. They're essentially just IDs and titles, so you can make it whatever you want. Or you could choose a view where you don't have resources and it only displays dates. Or you can do both at once, actually. Yeah, so you as the FileMaker developer control how you want to store your events and your resources and everything. It's just a matter of pulling that into a JSON object which you send to this calendar. Yeah, so
I can answer this. This is a matter of you working with different tables for different types of events, and you just we usually use a perform script on server with either the get data API, or we have chosen to use search. It has been actually the fastest way to do it. Yeah.
yeah,
So for performance issues, we have actually found that if you're doing a search on the server, and we have actually a summary field collecting all the JSON, that's actually the fastest way of getting the results back.
yeah. I was going to. We can show. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. In knobs. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have our events table, which is fairly simple. You just have your basic fields for, say, what times and stuff you want to do. We have a title, a speaker, and our event type field, of course.
Event. It's
The events layout. So, and then what you do is you convert all of those fields, you add them to one sort of summarizing JSON object, which you then would when you're fetching your events, you would, say, have a summary field of these and turn that into an array. And then you would add that into your configuration object and then send it over to the calendar.
So it's just a small script for collecting the events, returning the JSON, and pull that in. As a little tip here, in terms of performance, avoid use, if you have very big event tables, avoid using calculations in the JSON field. Store it permanently. It's much faster. It could work if you have a small system. It will work, but if you have in like millions of records in the event table, you'll be able. You need to store this information, and also it's very in terms of performance. To have the proper indexing, of course, for IDs and stuff is always very important. And we are also, in order to make it load fast with the event for when you have many events, you need to filter out in the FileMaker part the dates, of course, and the resources. Then it's much less data needed to be transmitted back to the web component.
While you could, in theory, just pass the entire table of event records, you probably wouldn't want to do that because most of those events are outside of the time range you've defined in your calendar.
And if you do that, it will perform not that good.
So I suppose you first load the calendar,
Yeah.
then you know, okay, I'm presenting week 43 of 2004.
Mm.
Then you have triggered back the FileMaker that only gets those events.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what you can do is, on the first initial load, you'll probably already have a date you want to show, which is usually just the current date. And then you can have like a predefined time range, like say I want to show the next 7 days. Then you do your find based on those values. But then when you're using the date picker from the calendar here, what it'll do, it'll call the script that you've defined in the script names object that I defined or showed you earlier. And then it's going to, it'll call that script and pass a few parameters. I think we can actually show that in a second. Question? Oh no, the implementation process of the calendar is incredibly simple. I mean, you've seen the few scripts we've used here. That's essentially all you need to get a pretty basic calendar up, and then after that, that's when you can add your own little features and like your buttons, your little tooltips, which we have functionality for, and your event filters and templates.
I could add on that I showed you in the demo knobs, the easiest part has been bring the events into the calendar. It's been much more demanding to modify the sidebar, searching for patients and that kind of stuff. But we have sampled how to do that, and it's a real mixture of FileMaker scripting, sending JSON over to this back to the component, and then the interaction between.
And the actual process of implementing and adding the web code that we've made into your application is also incredibly simple, which is what I showed with the HTML table, where we store the entire source code in one string and text field, and then we bring that into our web viewer. Yeah, it works on. We've tested it on both platforms.
It's a beauty of having young people with working only on Windows, actually. So we are testing it on Mac developers all the time. Good question, because if you look at that's been the really headache of being in this calendar business with FileMaker has been to the web viewers on Windows, and where we have seen big improvements in terms of memory usage and CPU usage after switching to this module for clients. A question?
Well, so that would sort of be the JavaScript developers, or in most cases us, our job. So what we've done when we compile the app is we mentioned that it works without internet access. That's because all the libraries we used, they get bundled together with the web code into that string. So the entire, like the specific version of React that we use, that's embedded into that text field right now. So if a library was to update, we could maybe update it in our developer project and see how it performs, and then if it's a significant difference in improvements, or there's more functionality that we'd find useful for our calendar, then we might implement it. Yeah, the calendar itself, it builds on the JSON input, if that's what you're asking about. Well, yeah, the library we use for the calendar itself is Full Calendar. You can go to fullcalendar.io and look at their docs there. That's essentially what enabled us to make this calendar. So the entire window here where we have our event displays, that's the full calendar part, whilst the side menu is something we made from scratch in React. Yeah, so you can look into the different views that you have available in the full calendar documentation, and we'll do our best to ensure that every single view works as it should. Right, okay. Yeah, so we have a full calendar premium license embedded into the minified version. So for you as a paying developer, you actually wouldn't have to worry about the full calendar licensing, because we're allowed to use our developer license for you as well, with the exception where you're modifying our source code, in which case you would need your own full calendar license. On mobile devices, that's not something we've tested yet, but we'd be open to looking into it. We do have functionality to, say, adjust the different text sizes and stuff, and you can add your custom CSS if that's relevant. So I guess in theory you could make it work on mobile as well. Right. Yeah, I would assume it would work decently well, but maybe not for a view that has like multiple days. Oh, it works on WebDirect too. Okay, we haven't looked into it, but that'd be interesting to check out. That's good to know.
Yeah, and we will use it for mobile applications in the future too. So it's of course it's demand.
That's on the sort of roadmap that we have. So.
Suppose you can drag here to create a new event?
Yeah, you can. We have that in the example. If you want, we can also show you the script debugger real quick about what information it sort of gives you. So if you open up the script debugger and then select a time range in the calendar, I do have in my watch on the data viewer, I have a JSON format elements on the script parameter.
That's first doing, I think it's first doing your JavaScript, and then you have to select.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's because we have the this is the built-in event creation pop-up that we have. So that's not something we use in our application, but we've added functionality for it, so you can add your own little fields here. So the type field, the title field, and the speaker field, those are also configured through JSON. So this also makes it incredibly easy to create specific events with values without needing any FileMaker UI, if that's something that you're interested in. So now if you open up the data viewer and go to watch, we have our, it's sort of a mess, but you see it down there with the JSON. So if you go into it, that's all the data that we received after selecting that specific, if you double click it, we can go further into it. So this is the JSON that we've received after selecting the time range. So a lot of developers, they have their preferences on how they want to work with timestamps. So we just decided to include everything. So we have our ISO timestamp. We got our Unix, the month, day, and year, if that's what you want to work with. And then there's obviously we use a UUID generator for the event's ID. And then what we would do is say just replace it with our own sort of ID. If you want to use, say, your FileMaker primary key, you can replace it with that. We have functions to add, removing, and updating existing events in the calendar, which we showed when we pressed that delete button. And in that case, all we did was we read off of the primary key of the record and then passed that to the calendar, telling it to remove that event. Because I believe that in this demo file, what we do is once we receive this ID, we create a new record, and then we call the update function that we have, telling the calendar that, hey, this ID, we're going to update it with this data, which is an object that has the new primary key as the ID. Yeah, so the way you edit your resources, that's sort of your job as a developer. So in our application, we essentially have.
Yeah, but your question was how do we control the features? Yeah, that was something that you need to take care of as a developer. We have in our framework, we use JSON for controlling access to features. Sorry. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I have an event which user is created,
Mm.
and the event must be with the event. Someone else is doing something with this event, and then the event must be closed, or the edit functionality must be disabled.
Right.
It doesn't show in multiple editing.
Mm.
So you wanna disable the ability to edit an event once it's been, say, locked by another user. Yeah. So what we can do here is you can, for instance, we have our script triggers that would launch when you click an event, and then that's where you could do your checks up against the event's ID if it's been edited by a previous user.
Well,
And then you could show your own dialogue to say, hey, this one's locked.
but if it's standard FileMaker layouts you're working with, it will be the FileMaker way of keeping track if a record is busy or not. Mm.
Do you have a list of all the API calls you have from your calendar to FileMaker?
Well, it's provided in the documentation, yes. So we have the entire list of different script names that you can use to listen for certain types of actions. Like for instance, we have the clicking of events. We're also able to drag different events to move them where we've automatically updated the times. There are the opening and closing of the event filters, which are the more specific ones. And also in the date picker, we've connected that up to a script as well. So if we click a date in the date picker, what'll happen is it calls the script, which performs a new search for based on the selected date and the amount of days that we want to show.
Can you easily go to the next week, for example, the next day here?
Yeah, if you go to the next day,
Only with the date picker.
well, yeah, well, you can pick it, you can control it however you want through FileMaker, but in this example here, we've called the script which takes in the date that you've selected from the date picker. And in this view, we only have one day at a time. So in the demo, we've only added events for this specific day.
Yeah.
I'm. We could check actually if you just go into VS Code and check the package JSON, because I
The question is now, how do you provide the possibility to change or to use all these views?
well, that's sort of our job to go into each view and figure out which sort of data you need to pass. But for mostly every view in full calendar, the JSON structure is very, very similar. So there's little need for changes in the code, but we're able to make custom exceptions, I guess you could call it, for specific views of full calendar.
Especially the view where you have the full year as a list. Also not directly list. That's what we know from macOS calendar. When you switch to the year view, you have an infinite scroll possibility.
Yeah, so it's a year view that would sort of lazy load multiple events. That sounds interesting. We could definitely get into that.
This is a challenge.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, no, I'd imagine what we'd do is we'd essentially just tell FileMaker that, hey, we've scrolled to the bottom, give us more events, and then you as the FileMaker dev would provide the next ones.
The user is always disrupted in usage when we don't see the events and then the
Mm.
events keep displaying.
Yeah. And to be honest, in our use case, we don't never have use for that.
But I can see that other developers would
but I
find
can
use
see
for it.
your want to, yeah.
What if someone else is adding events? So how do you handle the updates for the calendar? Because you were showing a filter, it's like a filter system
Yeah, so
with JavaScript only, so it doesn't do anything.
yeah, so you're talking about if you're multiple people working on the same calendar and then one person adds an event. Right now we have got functionality that works, but we have some technical limitation due to how whenever you call a script from a web viewer, it captures the focus of the FileMaker window. So say if you have two FileMaker windows open, and then you're writing in a record on that window, and then the counter's in the background, and then it calls like say a polling script, which you would do to check for changes, then it would capture the focus and disrupt the user. So that's something we're gonna request they have it fixed. But you can imagine that it's really not that difficult to sort of dynamically update the calendar when other people were to add, update, and remove events.
One additional question, so that relates to that, but can you have multiple windows open with different sort of different view?
Yeah, so you'd want like two different calendars with different views. Then what you would do is you would have two separate web viewers, and then you would give them different JSON configurations. So you can have any amount of windows open. Because what you do is you would inject the source code into the layout and then pass the configuration.
I can actually show that as a last thing to display. That we use it in our solution.
Yeah, so we actually started off before we did the calendar. We had the Kanban board that we were working on earlier. So I mentioned how you could use full calendar as a Kanban board, and that's sort of where the initial idea to use full calendar in React came in.
This is built with the same component.
It's
a
not
total
it's not exactly just another calendars. It's a sort of a previous edition of the code, but it works in essentially the exact same way. Just that here we don't have the dynamic displays and stuff.
So this is this is data from a totally different calendar source, and it's instead of personal resources, it's status, production status, orders, displayed.
This is a web viewer, yes. The top blue bar, that's in the FileMaker layout, but everything else, that's in the web viewer.
When someone else is changing the data, can you display them without updating, without manual updating the
Well,
we have a poller, but the issue with FileMaker is that if you call a FileMaker script, because we need to call a FileMaker script for searching for changes.
But you could do it for data from within here to your FileMaker server and just update it like that.
Yeah.
And not call FileMaker script, just do it via OData, for example.
Okay.
You can perfectly run the script and do an HTTP call here.
Mm.
right. We haven't gone too far into OData yet,
Maybe
so
you should provide the name and password in that bathroom. Then you need to expose
that would
so
probably be
everybody
possible, yeah.
that has full access can then enter the password, but OData is going to be easier.
Okay. I think time is run out now. Thank you for listening.
And then also on the brochures on the back, there's a QR code if you want to inquire about the calendar and sales. And then obviously we have our just another contact form here, so.
Maybe quick, how do you, is it a license or a monthly fee, or how do the pricing works?
It's a developer license that we have not concluded yet. We would want to check the response. It has been good, and we intend to make it a developer license that's per developer company. Yeah.
And then you could subscribe for however long you want, and when you feel like the calendar doesn't provide, we're not providing more for you, then you can end that subscription. And
So-
then you would still have full access to the updates you've received.
So you'll be able to build on the web part if you prefer to do it on your own.